Thank you, Dean Cassidy. As has already been said, my name is Vivian Jokoto. I'm the division chair of the Criminal Justice Sciences division here, and that comprises a number of programs. So we have a major in criminal justice, a minor in forensic anthropology, minor in homeland security and community preparedness, a minor in youth crime studies or juvenile justice, as well as concentrations in all of these areas and a certificate in homeland security and community preparedness. We also have a master's program, so once you come here and you decide that the career path you want is going to require you to get a master's, we have it right here as well. And as the dean said, we have several other programs that will guide you towards one that specifically meets your career goals. Our faculty is extremely knowledgeable in what we do. You wouldn't believe the expertise we have on our faculty, and you would see the variety of options available to you once you come here and you meet our faculty and you realize that we come from such diverse areas within the criminal justice system, as well as the alumni panel that you'll be hearing from really soon. So you're going to hear from a panel of alumni. So these are all people who graduated from our program and are currently working in various fields within the criminal justice system. So you're going to hear from them. I'm going to be asking them some questions, and at some point, I'm going to allow you to ask them questions too. You're going to see some pretty cool professions over here. So the first one I want to invite to the stage is Detective Jennifer Johnson. So Detective Johnson is from State Police. And as her title suggests, she's a detective. Have a seat. She's a detective with the state. And she graduated here in 2005. And we are glad to have her here today with us. The next person I'd like to invite will be Deputy Sam Hatch. Deputy Hatch is a sheriff's deputy with Polk County Sheriff's Department. And he graduated in 2015. So he will be talking to us about what he does in his day-to-day job. The next person I'd like to invite is Miss Elizabeth Quintana. Elizabeth Quintana is a juvenile parole and probation officer from Marion County. So she'll be telling us what she does in that field. And she is a 2010 grad. Am I correct? Yes. I have a number, all these numbers in my head. Okay. And they've told me multiple times, but I keep forgetting. All right. So the next person I'd like to call to the stage would be Mr. Kevin Jones. So Kevin Jones comes to us from the FBI. He's a staff operations specialist with the FBI. And so for those of you who are interested in a career with the FBI, he's your guy. And he graduated here in 2012. All right, I'll get the last one right. So the last person to join us would be Myra Mendoza. So Myra is from Polk County Community Corrections, and she's a parole and probations officer. And so we have a juvenile probation, and an adult probation officer. So Myra graduated in 2018, that I remember. And so I'll get on stage here and ask them a number of questions, just so that I guide the information they give you, and I'll give you some time to ask your own questions as well. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to go from one end to the next and have them tell you what they do. So the first question I have for each one of the panelists, I'll start with Detective Johnson, is what do you do currently, and what does that look like on a daily basis?
So hopefully this works, and it does, because I'm not a tech person. Like Vivian said, my name's Jennifer Johnson. I am with the state police. I've been there for about 12 years, actually just a couple days ago. So I started off in patrol, but right now I am a detective with the major crimes. So day to day is a lot of paperwork. You were talking about having a report writer, which is super huge, but a lot of my stuff is working with people, doing interviews, and writing just a ton of reports. But that's kind of my day-to-day. I think that was it.
Thank you. Same question.
All right. My name is Deputy Sam Hatch. I'm a corrections deputy, and I'm also a search and rescue coordinator for the Sheriff's Office. I wear two hats with the agency. My main hat is being a corrections deputy. In my facility, we house anywhere between 100 to 150 inmates, depending on the time of the year. And I do this with 5 other deputies and a supervisor. My day-to-day basis is basically routine, and it helps with the maintaining safety and security of the facility. Each day can be a little bit different depending on what happens, what people are brought in from off the streets, or what comes in from the courts. My other hat I wear is being a search and rescue coordinator. That can happen for many reasons. We could have a missing person within our agency or in our county. We could have a natural disaster happen, and in some cases there's also times where our volunteers are put out to find evidence for a case that might be happening within our county.
Thank you.
So I work for Marion County Juvenile Department. I've been working there for about 10 years, and the daily operations are a little bit of everything. In the mornings, we typically have court. We do take a lot of cases to our court system. We have to do the presenting. We have to have recommendations for the court and based on what case and what it is that we're doing with it. We also meet with our kids. So I call them ours because they are ours until they're done. Most of the time, we are visiting schools. We are working with the kids individually. We are doing brokering of services. A lot of them require drug and alcohol. They require counseling and other services that we are responsible for making sure that they receive. Along the way, it's a lot of people. Learning to really interact with individuals is one of the prime things that we have to do when we work with people, and particularly juveniles.
Thank you. Now we'll have Kevin.
All right. So my name is Kevin Jones. I work with the FBI, headquartered out of Portland, but I actually work in Salem. A lot of people don't realize that when they designed the FBI, they designed it to be able to respond to anywhere within the United States within 2 hours. So in Oregon, we have Pendleton, Medford, Eugene, Bend, Salem, and obviously Portland. So I work out of the Salem office, and I spend my entire day researching people, places, and things. So without getting too much into the details of what kind of different programs on intelligence there are, what I basically focus on is just finding people. People, places, and things. That's really what it comes down to. Alongside of that, not only finding them, but then processing that information and turning it into something that we can actually use to progress federal cases. So there's a lot of reports writing, there's a lot of research, and alongside there's another duty that it's a collaborative duty that I do, and I'm part of our evidence response team. So think about it like CSI, like is it the CSI shows? Is that still a thing, or is there something else that you guys watch? I'm not sure. But anyways, it's a lot like that. It just takes more time to understand what the processes look like. And so with that said, if there's a crime that the Portland ERT team has to respond to, I'll get an alert, and I will wear this, and I will go out to a crime scene and use all of our cool CSI tools and collect evidence, and then be able to process it, bag it, and then use it in court later on. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, Kevin also teaches some classes for us. And so it's really cool to come here and have a class, from somebody from the FBI if you want to end up there. So that's another resource we have.
And that was one thing that I actually wrote down, but that's what happens when I don't refer to my notes. So I've been teaching classes here, primarily online. This is my second year doing it, so I'm part of the criminal justice program here, and it's really good to have the opportunity to take some of the skills and abilities that I've been able to amass over the 9 years with the FBI now, and help students out. So at least once a week, maybe more than that, depending on the influx. I'm fielding emails from students saying, "Hey, I'm really focused in on the FBI. I'd like to learn more." So what typically happens is I'll set up a phone call, or I'll meet the student and answer all their questions about the FBI. So feel free after this. I don't know what your guys' schedule is the rest of the day, but if you have questions about it, I understand that's not something that we do great, is disseminate information to people, but if you guys have questions, feel free to find me somewhere and chat me up.
So now we'll go to Myra.
Hi. So I work for Polk County Community Corrections with adult probation, and essentially our responsibility is to supervise adults who are court-ordered to be out in the community fulfilling requirements, as well as people who are releasing from prison. And basically our day-to-day, it's different all the time, but our main responsibility is holding them accountable, making sure that requirements are being met and that the community is safe. So we're meeting with them in the office, constantly having office visits. We're going to their homes. We're out in the field. We're a lot of report writing, but essentially it's just a lot of one-on-one contact, making sure that things are properly going as ordered by the court. We're just kind of like the middleman. We're also having to go to court, so we just have to be flexible for anything that could just arise in the day, and we have to be able to move our schedules around and be ready for any emergencies, basically.
Thank you. So as you would see here, this is just 5 people out of the hundreds we have graduated. So diversity of jobs. You tend to hear from people when you are choosing criminal justice that you want to be a police officer. As you can tell, we do make some pretty cool police officers, but that's not all we do, right? So if your interest is in law enforcement, this is the place for you. If it's not, this is the place for you. Okay, so either way, we're here for you, and there's a variety of things you can do. We couldn't fit everybody here, and every year we have a different set of panelists in different uniforms, different outfits, all represented here. So we are always available to answer your questions. So the next thing I would like the panel to address will be how their degrees in criminal justice prepared them for the roles they are in. So I'll go back to Detective Johnson and have her answer that question. How has your degree in criminal justice prepared you for law enforcement and for your detective work?
I would say that when I feel like I'm like the old person here because I'm listening to all the people that graduated, and I was like, oh, that was a while for me. But I would say that being here at Western has helped me in that when I was going through the program, not only were the classes really engaging and fun, and anything that you have like a general interest in, I feel like you're gonna do a lot better. So I just believe like the courses were really good, and it was really easy to be successful. But I would say probably the number one thing And I think that this is what a lot of people say is the practicum experience. So like Vivian said, just because I can't pronounce her last name, so I just call her Vivian, I'm sorry.
That's good.
It doesn't mean any disrespect to Dr. Vivian. But the reason why the practicum I think is so important is because I kind of did something really unique in the fact that I didn't know if I wanted to work. I always knew I wanted to be a police officer, but I didn't know if I wanted to work with Marion County Sheriffs or if I wanted to work with the Oregon State Police. I was kind of divided. I didn't know. And so what I was able to do, or had the opportunity to do as part of the practicum, is at the end when you're looking at kind of like your last year, you choose an agency or the school helps you, and you kind of do like a job shadow. So for me, that was the biggest impact, is going through that practicum, because I split my hours. I did half my hours with Marion County Sheriffs, and I did half my hours with Oregon State Police, and just to kind of see and to gauge and to meet people. I mean, that's the biggest thing, folks, is to meet those people, have those connections, and now when you put in your application, they'll be like, yeah, I know Jennifer, she's real cool, or no, she wasn't really cool. But I think that was huge. And it also helped me decide, yeah, is this something that I really want to do? I'm sitting in the patrol car. I obviously don't have a gun or anything cool like that at the time. But you get to see kind of what their day-to-day experience is, and you kind of get to pick their brains. So I would say probably the people, not only the ones that you meet in the practicum, but the instructors as well, because I had several instructors that were currently in law enforcement, that they kind of helped me and guided me. I would ask them questions. One of my professors happened to work for the state police on the side, so I kind of picked his brain and then ultimately wanted to go to the state police route. So I would say the practicum and then the people.
So what you can get from that is the mentorship that happens here, right? So our faculty will mentor you into the area you want to go to. And not all of the faculty came here today. We have about 20 faculty members. And there are people who are in law enforcement, there are people who are working in various areas in the criminal justice field who actually teach, like Kevin Jones. And so you're going to have the opportunity to interact with those people, and they're going to give you some good guidance about what you want to do. So I'll let Deputy Hatch answer that question too.
One of the big benefits to doing the criminal justice program is that by coming here, you're going to continue the higher education, and that's what's going to happen as you get in the field of corrections or in law enforcement. You will learn in a career more than a doctor will. That's because this is never a revolving system. It's never going to be constant. If it was constant, it'd be a very different place right now. So even just in the 4 years I've been in corrections, it has drastically changed from how we handle dealing with people with mental health disorders, people with drug addictions. You got to be ready for that change, because I do work with people who don't have degrees, who've never been to college, and they're forced to change is really hard. They have a tough time trying to adjust to new things only because they're just used to doing one thing. I find that coming to do this criminal justice program, it prepared me to be prepared that things are not going to be constant, be ready to learn new ways of doing things, and overall having a good experience with meeting new different people and having those connections. Because like she said before, once you start getting in criminal justice, if it's, depending on what area you want to go to, for me, being in corrections and going into law enforcement, everybody goes to the exact same place. Everybody ends up meeting one another, and everybody will talk about you if you're good, if you have good rapport with other people, if you have some type of poor rapport. It's a big connection that you can make, especially if it starts at Western, because I don't know how many people I've met from patrol, probation, and corrections who've all said, hey, I've been to Western too, and that just kind of starts the conversation off.
Yeah, so that's a big benefit. And I mentioned earlier that we are in our 51st year now. So this is our 51st year, but we are celebrating 50 years of existence here on this campus. And we have graduated a ton of people. So it's very rare to go into an agency here in Oregon and not find somebody who graduated from our program. that means we also get lots of requests for job opportunities coming every time. I get them every single day from various agencies because those people who work there are good ambassadors, and they turn around and say, hey, if we are going to hire, we need a graduate from Western Oregon University. And so they reach out to us, and we are able to connect students way before they even graduate. And so some graduate with a job waiting for them. So that's a pretty cool thing.
So I work for Marion County Juvenile Department, as you know, right? And one of the ongoing jokes that we have in our department is, so are you a WOU graduate too? It is. The reality is, if we look at just the juvenile department, you have about 80% of the people there have a degree from Western University. I mean, that'll tell you where we are with it. So I'm a first generation as well coming to school. One of the things that I didn't feel comfortable with is that it's hard. Education is hard, and finding your bearings is even harder. But there was one time that I remember that I faltered, that I didn't know if I wanted my degree, if it was even worth it, because it was so stressful and it was so many things that I didn't want. But at the end of the day, when I finished and completed it, one of the things that I can tell you is having that degree allows you to move forward. In any agency that you step into, whether it be state police, FBI, any other thing, social work, having a degree will allow you to advance in that career. It will be the difference from not just pay scales, but also what kind of things you can do to transform that field. The degree makes the difference, and you helping make changes, big changes. I know that they mentioned earlier that all fields are kind of shifting and everything is changing. Well, it changes because we are learning, adapting, and the only way that you get even more of a voice in any of these fields is the degree that you have, the knowledge that you have, and the degree, frankly, backs it. So I think that's one of the things that I got most out of having this degree, that I'm not necessarily stuck in one place. You can move in so many different directions just having it. And it's really you making those choices at that point. So I think that's the value behind it that I received personally.
Thank you very much. And she said something really important here, which is the fact that the degree allows you to move around and be able to do what you want to do within the industry. So I highlight some of these things because they address some of the misconceptions you may hear about choosing a degree in criminal justice. Some people would say, why do you want to major in criminal justice? Because what if you get injured? And then I know this person is thinking they want to be in law enforcement and they're afraid they will be injured and they can't work. Even if you go into law enforcement and you are injured, Detective Johnson over there is not jumping around every day. So she doesn't need to be jumping around in order to do detective work. So the key is to have the preparation, the degree behind you, so that once you go in, you are able to do as many things as you want. I'm actually going to challenge you by saying that even if you go into the agency with what you think you're going to be doing, chances are 10 years from that point, you'll be doing something totally different, perhaps still in that same agency or in another area of criminal justice. So for our degree, we prepare you to understand things ranging from psychology, political science, law, all the way, sociology, all of it is in that one criminal justice degree. And so you have all of these options, as well as the new concentrations we've just added in forensics and juvenile justice and homeland security and community preparedness to attach to your criminal justice degree. So we are always doing things different, improving on what we have to fit what the agencies need. So you are always going to be current with the knowledge that's needed in this field by coming in and getting a criminal justice degree. So I promise you, once you come here, you're going to hear somebody from a different department who doesn't understand criminal justice say to you, what if you get injured? What will you do? And it will be your place to then tell them, no, there are many things I can do if I get injured. And even if I want to stay in law enforcement after I get injured, I can still do a lot of things. And maybe some of them will speak to that for you. Now, Kevin Jones, how has your degree in criminal justice prepared you for what you do?
So that's actually a really good question. So when I became a student here, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I did not know. All I knew is that I was going to go to college, and that was it. So I started kind of popping around to a couple different programs. I thought I'm going to be a teacher. That's what I want to do. That wasn't for me. I wanted to do psychology. Nope, that's not for me either. So then I had a friend of mine who was taking a criminal justice course, and I said, what do you even do in those classes? And he's like, oh, we're learning about homicide rates right now and what to do with, and I'm like, hold on, you're learning about that at school? And he said, yeah. And I'm like, you're talking about that kind of stuff like in class? He's like, yeah, that, and like learning about community crime prevention and drug statistics, and I'm like, okay, that sounds interesting. So I signed up for a class, and then I started this program. So while I was in the program, I still had no idea what I was going to do after I was going to graduate. I knew that college was going to go 4 or 5 years, and then after that, I was going to be doing something. I was working at Fred Meyer's at the time, so I was like, maybe I'll go back to Fred Meyer's. Like, it's always good fallback, and they treated me all right. So, but I really didn't have a plan. So when the question came, what did my degree in criminal justice prepare me for my role with the FBI, it was the reason why I got in the FBI, and that's the program is what caused me to even apply. So when I was in the program, you have to do your practicum. You have to do an internship in order to graduate. And I was like, okay, well, what should I do there? So I started looking at state police, a couple counties, and I was like, okay, so I was tossing out a couple applications here and there, and then I was like, okay, what would be like a really, really cool one? Like if I'm gonna throw a Hail Mary, what should I do? So I started looking at all like the alphabet agencies, right? Like the CIA, the ATF, the DEA, the FBI, LMNOP. I did all of them. I was like, I'm gonna look for all of those ones and see if they have an internship. So David Murphy, he's an instructor here. He's not in here right now, but he was my advisor. So I sat with him and I said, what do you think I should do? And he's like, just go big, apply to all of them. I'm like, you think so? But like, who knows anything about the FBI? It's probably like a covert mission or something like that. Like that's not even real. And he's like, just apply. I said, okay. So I applied. I was literally sitting in the library here on campus, and I was on the FBI's webpage, and it like came up and had the big FBI seal, and I'm like looking around. I'm like, the FBI's probably watching me do this right now. I'm like, where are you, FBI, right? And my mom would call and be like, not right now, Mom. I'm doing something. I have to call you back on a secure line. Like, I was like, really? I was like, oh, this is pretty intimidating, right? So I applied, and then I waited, and I got an email from the FBI, right? Which anytime you ever get an email from the FBI, it's like spam, right? It's like, oh, you just won a bunch of money too. But it was their recruiter up in Portland, and she said, hey, fill out these 3 forms, please send them back to me by Friday. I'm like, of course, yes, I'm not even yes, you can have these forms, and sent me another email, like, here's more forms, can you sign all of these and send them back by Tuesday? And I'm like, yes, okay. So I started going through this process, and it was really good to have a faculty member that actually has way more experience than I have, right? I was like, what do you think the odds are of this actually happening? So he was coaching me through the whole process. And then it became, so I had to do like an in-person interview, and then like drug tests, and then like a polygraph, like a lie detector test. So like literally, I called him when I was coming back from Portland after taking my lie detector test. I'm like, we need to meet right now. I need to meet in your office. Are you gonna be in your office? And he's like, yes, I will. Let's go meet. And I'm like, oh, please show up. I really need to talk to somebody. So he was coaching me through the whole thing. Said, you just need to calm down. I'm sure you did fine. Just breathe, relax. Let's ball in their court. I'm like, do you think I should email them right now? And he's like, no, don't. So then we went through the process. And then I found out that I passed the polygraph, and they said, hey, so this is all leading up to an internship. So, but I was still a student here. So I was like, okay. So I did my 10-week internship when I was a junior here. And then after the 10-week internship, they said, hey, we have an office in Salem if you want to work in Salem while you continue going to school here at Western. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I mean, sure, better than Fred Meyer's, I suppose. Yeah, I guess, that sounds pretty good. So every Wednesday from noon to 4, I would hop in my 1989 Lincoln Town Car, and I would drive to Salem, and I would do my internship, and at the end of that, it was a couple weeks before, or a couple months before I graduated. I still didn't have a full-time job lined up, but they reached out and they said, hey, if you're interested, we'd like to bring you on full-time up in Portland. I said, yeah, I guess so. Better than Fred Meyer's, I suppose. So yeah, of course, yeah. So again, I talked to Dr. Murphy. We looked over. He said, well, you're still going to have to apply. So I worked with Dr. Murphy, applied to these full-time jobs. I ended up getting one, and then that's what started the full-time work. But to circle all the way back around, how did a degree in CJ help me? It was the only reason why I even applied. If it wasn't a requirement in the program, I wouldn't have applied. I was terrified. I just wouldn't have done it. I just probably would have just done something else. So just keep that in mind that and I know they spoke about it earlier, it's all about the experiences, and it's all about building relationships and challenging yourself while you're here. And if you can do that and kind of move outside of your comfort zone, like you never know where you can end up. And so that's kind of how this happened.
Thank you. Mayor.
Yeah, I have to agree with Kevin. It's with the building relationships. When I first came to Western, I already knew I wanted to do criminal justice because of a presenter who came when I was in high school. So I was just focused. I'm like, I'm going to do criminal justice. I want to be in the FBI. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then as I began my classes here, got to know my professors, started meeting with my advisors, I started learning more about like different areas in criminal justice, like it was mentioned already. And so same thing with the criminal justice program, the practicum requirement was essentially what brought me to where I am now. I met with my advisor, who happened to be the same advisor as Kevin, with David Murphy, and he was telling me about people he knew from Polk County, since I was starting to get interested into probation. But at the beginning, I was more focused onto working with juveniles. That was my thing. I'm going to work with juveniles. That's what I want to do. So we made those connections. I went over and did my practicum over at Polk County Juvenile Department, where I got to meet all the staff there, and there I also met a state juvenile PO who took me around Oregon, took me to all the different facilities, who then I was just touring a facility, and I got to meet one of the superintendents. So I actually kind of had just like an on-the-spot interview. And fortunately, I was able to just start working Monday after graduation. And so I was working at a youth facility, I was working with juvenile, all of my experience had been with juvenile, but my experience working at the juvenile department and the relationships I got to build, and they got to, had to see how I worked, and just being able to learn, being on the spot, being open-minded. My supervisor from my practicum was constantly emailing me like job openings, and he'd tell me, you know what, try applying to this one, try applying to this, because they knew I wanted to be a PO. And in the meantime, I was working in a facility and I was liking it, but that was like my ultimate goal. And so my supervisor from my practicum would send me those job openings, and I would apply, and I wasn't moving forward right away, which I was okay with. I mean, I wanted them obviously, but I was just going with it. And then I saw the adult PO position open up, and same thing, my supervisor was like, you know what? Weirder things have happened. I had no adult experience when it came down to supervision. And so I applied for it, and since I had already done my juvenile practicum there, and the director was the director for both juvenile and adult side, she already knew me. And so at first, when I applied and I was going through the hiring process, I really thought she was just being nice to me just because she knew me. And I was like, there's no way I'm moving forward. And then it was a long process, so I just kept moving forward. And I just kept doubting it. I was like, okay, she's just being nice. There's no way. I have no adult experience. And at the end of the day, it turns out like that's kind of what they liked. The fact that I was just starting new, I was open-minded to learn, kind of just letting them teach me how things worked for their department. And so I've been there since, and if it wasn't for the practicum requirement, I probably wouldn't have really pushed to complete an internship with them, and everything wouldn't have just worked how it did.
Thank you. So I'm sure you're picking up on a theme here, and we didn't select these people just for that purpose, but that's a story you're going to hear very often where they tie practicum to their jobs, right? So we teach you all the theories and everything you need to know, but then when you get to that practicum part, that's when you start dipping your feet into the agencies and actually finding out exactly what you want to do. But your degree makes you such a valued candidate that you hear this very frequently. We hear this very frequently when people will say, I never thought I would be called for that interview. I never thought I'll get the job. I'm like, come on, you have a degree in criminal justice from Western Oregon University. You know, you're going to get that job. So I'm sure you're getting some of that. And I'll allow you to ask questions here pretty soon, but I'm going to have them all address one last thing and then open it up for you to have time to ask questions of them. So the last question I'm going to ask them is, why did you choose Western? So we'll start with Detective Johnson.
I chose Western because I was going to Clackamas Community College at the time, and I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I took a mass murder serial killer class, and I loved it. And I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I'm totally gonna detect serial killers. Yep. No, I haven't got one of them yet. But side note. But I really like criminal justice. I didn't have any family that was in law enforcement. But after that course and just talking to that professor, it's like, okay, where can I go to expand on this? I want to get my degree. I want to get my bachelor's degree. And Western was the only one that had the law enforcement degree that I was looking for. So I did a major in law enforcement, and I minored in forensics, which also was kind of my geeky side, which I love it. I love all the forensic files and shows like that. But Western was the only one that had that, and it was nice and local for me, and that's kind of why I chose Western.
Thank you.
So my kind of career path getting to Western was I got an early admittance when I was a junior in high school in about 2010, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a teacher, just like everybody else who likes to come here. And then kind of talking with my teachers in high school and getting to kind of understand the career path for that, the job outlook wasn't great because the economy and all that wasn't that great. But fortunately for me, I had an older brother who was actually at Western. He was a senior, and he was a CJ major. And I came to visit him one week for a weekend, and I sat in one of his CJ classes, and just right there, I was like, I want to do this. This is way more interesting. This is just interactive, and it's fantastic to listen to, and just knowing what you're getting into is a very interesting subject. And yes, everybody asks you, oh, you want to be a police officer? Well, for me, yes, but that's not just the only thing I could do at Western. And after I started getting into the program, understanding all the other things that I can do in the classes, they're not just oriented to specific areas of law enforcement. I took a crime scene diagramming class. I've taken crime data analysis classes, statistics classes, just a variety of different things I can implement into my day-to-day work basis right now and for my future. So that was a big ticket for me to choose Western over any other university, is knowing that I'm going to learn something that I want to do and apply the things that I can do differently in that field as well.
Thank you.
For me, it wasn't necessarily a program at the time. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was fearful of college or any form of university. So I did a lot of tours, and I found that the bigger campuses that I went to intimidated me more. And then I came to Western and I toured it, and one of the things that I loved about it was the size. I really felt like I could connect with people here. It was just different. And when I started working with teachers and everything else that my experiences were here at Western it's very family-like oriented. They take care of you. That's one of the things that I always felt as I was going through school is that if you had an issue, a problem, concerns, they were quick to respond. That was one of the things that I loved about engaging with the professors that we had is that you felt secure. The campus itself is a beautiful campus. It's grown since my last time that I've been. But I really enjoyed the class sizes, the professors' availabilities, your ability to interact and really connect with other people. Because at the end of the day, in order to make it through any university, it's kind of communal. You're gonna need support, and you're gonna need to feel like there's people around you. And that's what it really made it happen for me. Apart from the classes that are amazing, and you're gonna learn so many wonderful things, it was that connection to those individuals who were teaching me, and their ability to really make me feel like I could do it. And if you have any doubts, I think the moment you step onto this campus, they're gone. So that was for me.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, for me it was, I came here on a SOAR day, so it's like a student preview day, and I came here with my mom. She drove me down. Thanks, Mom. And I was walking around the campus, and I was like, this is really cool. I'm like, it's really small though, because I'd also toured University of Oregon and OSU, so I was like, man, those schools are really big. And I'm like, isn't that like way better than like a small campus? I'm like, let me think about that. So I started really thinking about it, and then I was like, well, if the purpose of going to school and going to university is to get your 4-year degree and get good grades and actually establish a career afterwards, I'm like, maybe it wouldn't be wise for me and a good fit for me to go to a larger university. So I came here, and I am really glad that I did. There's not a whole lot of distractions. I mean, I guess it's up to you, but I spent a lot of time actually focusing on academics and actually trying to study, which I never did in high school. But when I came here, I actually learned a thing or two on how to study and succeed, and I started getting good grades. And the more my GPA went up and my grades were better, the more money the university would offer me in scholarships. So before I knew it, I was getting like tens of thousands of dollars to go to school, in both internal and external grants and scholarships, stuff like that. So it was kind of I just knew it was going to be a good fit, and so I pursued it, and I'm really glad I did.
Okay, Myra?
Well, for me, I came to the university when I was still in high school for a conference, so that was the first time. Actually, it was the first and only time I came to the campus to tour it. And I knew I wanted to do criminal justice, and I had heard about their criminal justice program, so I just kind of went for it, applied. I liked that the school was really small. I liked the class sizes being really small, because I was also really nervous about that transition from high school to college. I'm like normal seniors, like the whole transition. And so I figured that it would be the best to just stay small, and then I was just really focused on the criminal justice program, and I had only heard good things about it and how they had a really good program going, and it would probably be the best fit. And so I just applied here, actually, and I also was offered scholarships, so it just made the most sense, and it worked the best for me.
Thank you. So before we go on and get your questions, I'll quickly like to introduce two new of our faculty members who have just joined us. I told you some of them are teaching. So we have Dr. Scott Tai. Dr. Tai is in charge of the Homeland Security program. So you've heard about his program over and over and over, and now you have a face to it. Dr. Tai runs the Homeland Security Program. And then next to him, we have Dr. Taryn Vanderpyle. Dr. Vanderpyle does her research and teaching largely in corrections, and she also does some juvenile justice courses. So her research is both juvenile justice and corrections, and so she's our resident corrections person here. So she actually came in a little late because she had a meeting with a warden in Hillsborough before she could come over here today. So that's what she does in the community. Now, thank you. So now we're going to get questions from you, and this is a test. So you have to have some questions for the panel. So who will go first? Dr. Gingrich and Jennifer Willard have mics, and so just raise your hand and we'll give you a mic to ask a question. We have the first person here.
What was the hardest thing that you say that you had to go through in order to get to where you are now? What would you say the hardest thing would have been?
Who wants to take that?
I guess I can.
Okay.
For me, the hardest thing was enduring a lot of denies. Working in corrections and law enforcement, it's a very competitive field. Like having the degree is great because when you apply, there'll be a checkbox in the application box that says, do you have a degree or higher education? And that's great if you do, because that gives you more preference points as they total up the scores of your when you do all the testing that is required before you go into interview process. And for me, it was when I graduated, there was a lot of openings, but a lot of the people that were filling them were people who already were laid off prior to the economy collapsing, and so they already had the experience, so they were getting picked up again. So for me, it was constantly enduring, just keep putting your application out, working as hard as you can, doing community events as much as possible, getting into doing reserves, any sort of thing that can help you, give you a better stand in front of the other applicants that can apply. My brother, when he graduated, he applied to Salem PD, and they had to do all the testing at Willamette University because there's over 100 applicants for one job. Now there's a lot more opportunities, there's a lot more openings, and by having the degree and everything else, helps you give a leg up on everybody else. So just, if your aspiration is going to law enforcement or in corrections, be ready and do a door. You know, I know some people who apply once and they get hired right off the bat, which is fantastic. But for me, I had to apply at least over 20 times to different agencies. But once an agency finds you, it's a great feeling that you're felt very wanted by that agency because of what you put in and all the work that you do prior to going into law enforcement, the education and all the added stuff that goes into it as well.
Thank you. There's a question here. Over here.
Hi. I was driving this group of kids in today, and I got my master's degree from here, so I was familiar with the campus, and I was going to show them, there's where the police academy is, and it wasn't there. It's something different now. So I just wondered if you could address, have some of you gone to what you hear of as police academy, or how does that work?
Yes, that's a very good question. The police academy was located here on campus for a long time. And even though there were people who graduated from our program who we saw in the police academy on campus, the academy is really not tied to Western. So the academy was just located here, and after a while they built a bigger and better facility where they could have all of their trainings, and so they moved from here. But so we constantly had to tell people, you first have to get your degree, and then once you get hired by a law enforcement agency, they then send you to the academy. The academy just happened to be on this campus, but they built a better facility. And so when students come here, though, we have great connections with the academy, and we take students there on tour all the time. Any other questions? Okay. There.
I was just, sorry, that's very loud. I was just wondering about like social media in terms of how that has an impact in terms of, you know, if students are interested in going into criminal justice, how much of an impact of what they post on social media and for your suggestions to them and advice?
Who wants to take that?
I say it's probably going to be Kevin or I. Maybe I'll talk and then I'll let Kevin talk. I would say, actually, one of the questions was the gentleman over there had asked, what's your biggest thing that you've done to get here? I would feel like social media and the media is probably the biggest hurdle that I've had to face. And I would say, and I have really good ties with the media. You have to have good relationships and good partnerships with the media because law enforcement, we also like to utilize them for our favor. So I'm not dissing on the media or anything like that. But I would say that take things like in a grain of salt. I think that as a nation, I think that recruiting and stuff probably has gone down, and that's a lot of statistics involved with that, and I think the media is probably to blame. But at the same time, there's so much good that is done out of the world, and the media just portrays such a small amount, and there's gonna be bad people in every single profession. So for me, I just have to like try to have that mindset that no, this is a very professional organization. I work with great people. Yeah, there are some people that take wrong turns, but I try to tell people not to focus too much on the media. It's like the coronavirus and how the media is, you know, dramatizing that. Well, there are people getting sick, but there's also a lot of people that are not getting sick. So I do think that has an impact, but I think the stuff that we do every day that's really good doesn't get put out there because it's not newsworthy. But I still think it's a really good option, and I think that people are doing a lot of good things and positive things. So I think you just kind of have to look outside the box.
So,
and I think building on that too, as far as social media is concerned, how many people here actually have a Facebook? Like, right? Like, show of hands. Like,
I don't know if Facebook's a good thing now. I think you have to do something else, Kevin. Like, you know, the Insta
TikTok?
and stuff like
TikTok,
that.
You guys doing like the TikTok dances and all that stuff? Yeah, okay, I get it. Like Instagram, right? All that stuff. So you got to think about it like this too. And correct me if I'm not getting to the question. You guys hear this stuff all the time, right? Like make sure that what you post on those things, your grandma wouldn't want to see it, right? So just you got to think about. By show of hands, do you think anything you post on any form of social media is actually private to you, right? Right, so nobody raises their hand, right? So you gotta string that along to when you apply somewhere. Do you think that any law enforcement agency is gonna try to check your social media?
yes.
Well, yeah, of course, right? So just circling back around, that's what I spend my entire day doing is researching people, places, and things. And that includes social media, because of the information that's out there, right? So keep that in mind, guys, is that before you I'm just gonna post this, I could delete it if people get angry about it. That's not how it works. Like once it's out there, it's out there. So was that more aligned to your question? Yeah.
If I can step in too?
Yeah.
So part of the juvenile probation officer, awesomeness, is that we have to check social medias. When we are directing kids or doing anything of that, Facebook, Instagram, every kind of app that you have open that you're posting on, we are visibly able to see those things. So usually what I tell, most of the things I see are not necessarily in the positive zone. Here's the thing, wherever you go, you want to represent yourself as someone who is capable of doing many good things. Somebody that has integrity. All those things, the good qualities about you, those are the things that you want to highlight. Social media, the things that you post and that are associated to you, that is what you are saying, that's what's representing you. So you need to understand that piece as you go forward, because most agencies will be looking at that, believe it or not.
Yeah, and these days, a simple Google search of you will bring up all of your social media.
Nothing is private, remember that. And nothing erases.
Yeah, there's a question there.
Okay. Hi, I just had a question about at what point in your studies or currently in your career path did you finally figure out like this is where I need to be, especially like, and what advice would you give for kids still deciding, especially seniors about to go into college and still don't really know?
So, who wants to take that?
I can take that. So the first part of the question was, at what point do you feel like this is it? For me, since I graduated 2018, not too long ago. For me, it was now that realizing, okay, I don't dread going to work. I actually look forward. My days go by really fast, and especially since it's different all the time, it just makes it's not dreadful. It's something that I knew that I wanted to do and that I enjoy. My coworkers honestly make it a lot easier to just be able to. We have to have a good sense of humor with the kind of work that we do, because there is a lot of serious stuff. So you have to be able to jump around and make it light and not let it affect you personally. And for advice for seniors, I would say just stay open-minded. Don't close yourself off. You might be set on a specific position that you think that might be ideal for you. But once you learn more about different areas, you might just find that might be a better fit for you. So just be open-minded and definitely stay persistent. Don't give up, and just remember that even though you might not be employed right now, with the whole social media thing, just make sure that what you post or what you're doing about yourself and showing out to the world, that you might not be representing someone directly, but down the line when they look at what you are involved in, what you're doing, it still represents overall. So just post and act as if you were already representing what you want to work for.
Thank you. So I see there's a question there, so we'll take one last question. Oh, more questions here. We'll take that question, and depending on how long we take to answer it, we have 1 minute, and then we'll hand you over back to admissions office. So.
Okay. So obviously the jobs that all of you guys have are really like, there's a lot of positive things that come out of it. So I guess my question is, for all the things that probably aren't that positive, how do you guys emotionally and mentally like deal with that? Like, how would you guide yourself through it and not get stuck on that one thing?
I think that would be a good question for Detective Johnson, because she already talked a little bit about law enforcement and the negative press that comes with it, which tends to be a challenge. So maybe I'll just have her talk about how she deals with that.
I'll try to make it quick. But yeah, you do see a lot of negative thing. You do see like people at their worst time in their life. And I've been on the SWAT team for over 7 years, so I really do see people like at their worst. So I would say for me, what has been super helpful is talking to people, and I try to just maintain a very positive outlook on life, but I also know that there are times when I probably need to seek maybe some counseling or something like that, maybe somebody that doesn't know me, and then that I could, tell them my thoughts and things like that. So I would say in conjunction with that and just living kind of a healthy lifestyle of working out and just trying to focus on, I do a lot of negative things and I see a lot of negative things, but I also see a lot of really cool positive things, and so I try to focus on that.
Thank you. So can we take one last question? Okay, so there was a hand up here. The mic is coming your way. So this is our last question. And then admission staff is waiting.
Oh.
Yep. There. Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah, you're on.
What are some of the pros and cons of like your guys' career field?
Pros and cons.
I would say con, death notifications. That's a definite con.
What's a pro?
For me, it's dealing with people with mental health disorders. They don't know what they're doing, and it's a kind of constant battle of trying to keep them as safe as possible from themselves and trying to get them to be readjusted into a society, but it's very difficult in a closed facility. So enduring that constantly is kind of a struggle, but you find ways to deal with it and work with it.
Thank you. Do you want to add a pro?
I think for me, a pro is working with people, all sorts of people. You know, you get an opportunity just to interact with different people with different views and points, and it strengthens you.
I think a good pro would be if there's a situation that arises or an event, it's really cool to see that everybody within law enforcement, it doesn't matter where you are, what rank it is, like everybody is literally on the same team and everybody works together towards that common goal. Like there isn't any like, oh, you're not with the FBI or oh, you're not with the state police. Like if there's something going on, everybody's on the same team. And even if you've never met these people, like that's your buddy and you're moving forward.
You want to add
The con for me, probably, so seeing people at their very lows and having to take away their freedom for periods of time. Con, though, is being able to be a part of their lives when the relationships we build with our clients, when they really change their lives around, and being able to be a part of that.
Awesome. So thank you very much. Thank you.